All right, let's get into it. Thank you guys, and we've got a bunch of people watching on YouTube right now, and this will be recorded. This is the first time I've ever used this this little tool, so let's see how it goes. And you know, it's been a crazy 72 hours for sure. And you know, from a personal standpoint, from a business standpoint, and just you know, I think that I was talking to somebody today, and a colleague of mine, and just saying the radical difference between Monday to Tuesday and Wednesday has been something that, you know, should at least be journaled about or reflected on in some capacity. So the topic today that we're digging into is all about client relationship management, and how fitting, obviously, I mean, it's a very important and relevant topic to us marketers, and if you're on the client side, for sure, in normal times. But in the times we find ourselves in, at least right now, I think it's even more relevant and timely. So what we'll do is, hi, welcome, Tara. Just this is the last time I mentioned this, but go to the YouTube link that I put in the private chat, and leave this broadcast. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just first thing is introduction. So I'm Caleb Clark. I run a digital marketing agency here in Calgary called Hook and Ladder, and we have created the Calgary Marketing League. And really, the purpose of the Calgary Marketing League is simply to bring together experts, you know, across Canada or in the city, and really dig into and dive into different topics relevant to marketing and business in general. So we hope that this is going to be a regular thing, and I want to thank my first panel that was so gracious enough to help us out, and especially under these circumstances. I know we have families and kids and other things going on, so I'll just jump right into it, and maybe I'll start with Shannon. If you just want to give us a quick intro of who you are and what your business is.
Sure. So my name is Shannon Hilko. I'm the founder, creative director of Hilko Creative Direction and Design. I started my business in 2017 because I felt like there was a better way to service clients. So when you introduced this talk, I thought, hey, I'm not really on account side, but I am, because I run my own business. I'm obsessed with problem solving, and I think you can only truly problem solve if you know your clients really well, and what their pain points are. So I really believe in taking a collaborative, engaging, and transparent approach with them to reach their business goals. And I run workshops to help them to do this, to create plans together to move forward. Sometimes that results in them using me all the time, but sometimes that results in me passing it off to other service providers like Caleb to continue you know, the full digital ecosystem if I'm not able to service them to past that level, kind of thing. So yeah, that's what I do.
Can we see your sweater, please, Shannon?
Oh yeah. So this morning I was like, what should I wear today? We're not in person. I've been wearing tights quite a lot instead of coming into the office. So my colleague, coworker, Tori, her roommate makes these embroidered sweaters, t-shirts, swag, things like that. And she had posted this quarantine sweater. I loved it. And I was like, hey, can I pick up one of those sweaters today? I think it'd be perfect. And she's like, yeah, you can come down and grab it. So she's got them. She's local. She's fully stocked. So I actually had two girlfriends. That's what I was texting, because they're like, where can I get those sweaters? So if you want to order them, Ugly Ass Embroidery.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, Shannon. Welcome.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, what's up? So my name is Mike, and I'm from a company called Arcade Studios. We're based here in Inglewood, Calgary, and we're a team of 6. We are a digital agency, so we provide services for clients around strategy, content production, and what I refer to as distribution, but that's a lot of different things, like managing organic social for brands, as well as influencer partnerships, and then especially paid social campaigns and digital advertising. So that can include things like SEM, as well. But it's kind of that organic touch point, that paid touch point, and influencers all together in that one bucket. As far as how that plays into this, I'd say that relationship management is super important to us, just not only for our clients, but also with the service providers that we use. We work with contractors too. So I'm excited to talk about some of those types of relationships in addition to account management. And then we also run a podcast called Wave Social, and it's all about social media marketing and brand marketing. And we have a different guest on each episode. So even managing relationships with people that we don't really know and having to establish rapport quite quickly has been really interesting. So I'm excited for this. It's gonna be fun.
Thanks, Mike. And you got to check out the podcast. It's awesome. It's very good content. He does it with his wife. It's hilarious and amazing. So, Kevin.
Thanks.
Hey guys, yeah, my name is Kevin Wilhelm. I am the founder and president of a local-based company called Pod Marketing. However, we deal primarily in vertical specializations. So we are kind of, our strategy is that we spin off different companies and different divisions to support verticals. So we have one in optometry where we service about 150 different optometrists across North America. We have one in dental, home services, medical aesthetics, and senior living. So we sort of bucket ourselves into a specific vertical, hire a team that can uncover opportunities, and then we're a full service digital agency specializing specifically in those verticals. So yeah, we've been in business about 6 years, and just really excited to be part of this as well. I think account management is huge, especially with what's going on right now and how we deal with this with clients. So really excited to also learn from my fellow panelists as well.
Thanks, Kevin. And Shauna, we were going to lose Shauna because she had a commitment in Edmonton, but happy to have you.
I'm back. Shauna McDonald, I'm the founder and principal of Brookline PR. Brookline's been around for 15 years. I've been in the agency world longer than that, with a large big box agency prior to that for a few years as well. To your question, client relationships are everything. I think we wouldn't be in business unless you had phenomenal client relationships, and continuing to do so with new business. Brookline is working with clients in all facets of industries, but we're a full service agency, and also bringing in creative in-house as well. Great to know that I've got some potential digital partners out there, so we should chat after this potential panel. Brookline also has our own podcast. It's called Beyond PR. We really started this this year specifically to reach relationships outside the PR industry and starting to build those relationships with potential new clients, potential new suppliers, and really getting different takes on positions in the industry, but also, quite frankly, in life. So again, I think client relations are everything. It makes or breaks an agency and who we are and what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Awesome. And there's going to be some carryover with some of our questions here, and I'll just jump right into the first one. And I think client relationship management means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Sometimes it's a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes it's being firm and telling them which way we got to go. And sometimes it's collaboration and brainstorming. So first question is, what does client relationship mean to you? So if you have a stance, jump in and unmute yourself.
I'll start. I think with Brookline in particular, all clients are very different. So you quite frankly have to read the room. Some clients want to be heard. Some clients want you to just execute what they're requiring. And some clients really want that back and forth communication to come together with an actual decision. So you really have to read the room because every client is different, and you really have to determine what their key objectives are because they're not going to be the same. And if you put a cookie cutter approach to everything, you're not going to be successful. But I'll shut up.
Yeah, I'll step in here too. I think that just in any relationship, whether it's marketing or, you look at HR companies right now, outsourcing, or finance companies, everything, especially this week, it's so topical. I think clients are looking for trust. They're looking for expertise. They're looking for guidance to make critical business decisions. And so Sean is right. Like, you have to read the room and understand the objectives of those clients. And those objectives can change quarter to quarter, year to year, or day to day if it's this week. And so having that relationship and understanding their business and what they're trying to achieve is so critical. And then being that guide and that sort of pilot. I kind of say that marketing is like getting into a plane, and you want to know that everything's built well and the pilot knows where they're going, and that they trust the person in charge of the the plane. So you want to be that strong, confident pilot no matter what, and make sure that your clients feel confidence coming from you, that you know what you're doing.
I have to interject. Sorry if my mouth dropped. My little guy dropped off his Lego rocket, so I had to show him. I was really impressed. Sorry about that.
That's the benefit of these times, Shauna. We get to work, and we get to spend times with our kids. So sorry, Mike, go ahead.
That's good stuff. No worries. I was just going to add, I think I would agree definitely both with Kevin and Shauna here, but I think too, for us, client relationship management has been changing a lot over the last couple of years. We've really made a decision with the way we structured our agency and the way we work with our clients to try to transition away from like a quantity approach more to a quality approach. So we used to work probably, I don't know, we're a small team. There's a team of 6, but we would work with 20 to 30 clients at a time. And now we've really tried to pare it down more towards that 10 client mark. And that allows us to have a much more intimate relationship with the clients that we work with. I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the only way to do it, but I think it's been something that we were longing for with the clients that we worked with, to be able to give them a little bit more attention and TLC, and also just give them our best ideas. So for us, what that really looks like is being more involved in everything that they're doing, and giving them access to the things that we're doing. And that plays into what Kevin was saying about how important it is to establish trust. And I think when you start a relationship with someone, essentially you're giving them influence, and they're giving you influence. And you can't really have influence without trust. And so establishing that trust and rapport and making sure that they understand that you're going to show up for them every time is what's going to allow you to be in the driver's seat when it comes to their marketing activities or whatever service it is that you're providing for them. So I think intimacy is kind of an uncomfortable word, especially in the business and professional side of things, but it's something that I've been exploring when it comes to the relationships that we're building with the brands that we're serving.
I agree. I find that relationships and relationship building are the utmost importance, and they just don't work unless they're based on mutual trust. And I find relationships that work for me are ones, and my client are ones where we both have mutual goals and buy-in. So that's where I work really hard with them to understand their business goals before we go into any branding project, any marketing plan. And that helps the work. So I think it's these days, because now you have lots of my clients have been long-term partners, 8 years or more, and I'm very comfortable supporting them in any way I can through what we're going through right now, and completely stopping and shifting gears. I'm really confident in the advice that I give them. There's no fear of what's unknown with them in the most part. Like I can trust myself a lot more versus other times when there's just not that trust established, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. I think the other side of that too is like the client relationship, but I also find the staff relationship really important. When we're looking at today, how do we bring confidence to our staff so that they're able to deal with
yeah, that's a great point,
well.
Shannon. That's a great point, Shannon. Someone said, mentor of mine told me today, in these times you put your arms around your team, they'll put their arms around their clients, right? And that is our responsibility, right? Especially right now, if not always. And I believe strongly in that. The next one is, okay, so let's say, I know because we've touched on this a little bit, but let's talk about the importance just in general, and then in these days, the importance of having strong bonds between clients and their account rep or agency in general.
I'll start. I think in order to really ingrain your agency into a client's world, you have to be very committed to what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And if they see that you're committed to what they're doing and what's important to them, it really comes back the other way, especially in these times. We've got clients that are needing us right now to hustle and hunker down and support them during this crisis. We've got other clients, to be frank, saying we've got to kind of put the brakes on because we don't know what's happening, but we will call you as soon as we know what's going on. And those are the clients that are going to certainly circle back and say, okay, we're ready to hustle again. But if you don't have those relationships or those connections, it's not going to work out for you. So you've got to make that commitment. And I think we have this theme for 2020 about going above and beyond for our clients. That sounds really simple, but you have to think through the client's lens as well, and them also feeling that they're receiving that above and beyond work, not just getting the job done and ticking the box.
Yeah, and I think that right now we talk about that strong supplier and client relationship. It's knowing your clients to the point where when something like this happens this week, you know their business well enough that you don't need to ask them. You have ideas prepared. And for us, and again, we're in specific verticals, and so we understand the industry challenges when dentists aren't even allowed to see their patients and optometrists aren't allowed to see their patients. They know that they're losing a ton of those patient relationships, and so we automatically just started creating social media content for them and pop-ups on their website and the e-blasts, and we just had it ready to go so that when we called them, it wasn't, hey, how's it going? It's, hey, here's the plan. Here's what we've already put in place for you. We just need you to check a box and say yes, because it's already done. We know your brand. We know the messaging. We know what you're up against. While you're trying to figure this out, let us handle this. And that's why having those relationships in the beginning and building that over time, it allows you to really step up when needed in times like this.
Thanks, Kev.
Yeah, awesome. I think from like a business or agency owner perspective too, every account has the potential to grow, I'm sure that my fellow panelists would agree that it's always more economical to grow your current accounts than it is to go out looking for new ones. And so if you're nurturing the relationships that you have, then you'll have the ability to add on other service types or expand ad spend or marketing budgets or add additional cool creative campaigns to the mix, whatever it is. And beyond that, they're also your best source of leads too. Like if they're drinking the Kool-Aid and loving it, they're going to pass it around, So if we're prioritizing the relationships that we do currently have and giving them the love and attention that they need, whether it's in a time like this, that's just an absolute crisis, or the normal day-to-day, that's going to pay off in spades before you ever go out looking for new opportunities.
100%. I don't really think I have much to add to that, but you kind of nailed it with the referrals, and that's what I found too. Is the most rewarding thing when you've done a good job and you get referral after referral. Like I have one client that's referred me 5 times in 6 months, and I've gotten 2 really good clients from that, and so that's the best reward I can get from that. But I mean, I think it's especially important these days just because the trust is there. That would be my biggest takeaway, because you can be flexible and they know you got their back on it. So I think that's why it's really important. And most of my clients I do consider friends. So I mean, it's easy for me to be very, very invested in their business and really just want the best for them, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, one thing you guys all sort of said there was you're talking about clients and client relationships not being transactional, but really about giving everything you have to them, and if that means in scope, out of scope, whatever, because you're playing the long game, right?
Exactly.
You're playing the network effects, and so I appreciate that.
And long game. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I
was just going to say long game, not just for them, but the point made earlier that long game that potentially you're going to get referral business. And I think when agencies can honestly say that most of their business comes from referrals, that means they've got a solid client base.
Totally. So can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We talked a lot about this within our team, is that, you know, there's the day-to-day activity about, you know, on time, on spec, on budget, and doing what we got to do to fulfill the details of the campaign. And then there's the client relationship, like the soft skills, right? But going back to that first part, how big of a, because we've all been in situations before where we felt like we've had really good relationships and communication and dialogue with our client, but we're dropping the ball on project management, or something happens with the campaign. How important to the overall relationship is making sure things happen tickety-boo, you know? So talk a little bit about project management, where that fits in.
Sorry, I feel like it's 100% the most important thing. Again, with this question, I know you sent them out ahead of time. With this one, I was like, oh, project management. But then I thought about it, and it's been the #1 focus of how I work this year specifically. If you don't let people know when things are due on their end, if there's no accountability there, if there's no friendly, persistent follow-up, then things just don't get done. And then it can cause complications down the line. So I think project management, kind of beyond anything else, scheduling, making sure they know what to do by when, and if that doesn't happen, being able to shift that and let them know clearly what that looks like. I think that's 100% makes or breaks the project that you're working on, or can make or break the relationship as well.
I think for us in PR, definitely, like, detail is king. Project management and the team knows at Brookline that there needs to be those details we need to follow through. But I also want to be very cautious that we don't always just have our head down and blinders on, and we're not lifting up to see what that bigger picture is, and perhaps we have to pivot. And sometimes you can get so focused on your timeline or your PM schedule that you miss something that could be huge or big for the client. So I also say to the team, okay, what else is happening? What else should we be thinking about outside of these deliverables? And are they going to impact, quite frankly, their project, given what we're in today right now? You know, should we be pushing this out for a client given the tonality and the optics right now? And making sure that we are also aware of what's going on big picture wise as well.
Yeah, for us, I equate it to golf. So I think that good project management is hitting a great tee shot. And so for those that golf, if you hit a bad tee shot and you end up in the bunker or the rough, it's a lot harder to recover and try to get a good score. Whereas if you hit it straight down the fairway, that tee shot initially, it matters immensely. And so you can build all your goodwill with being a great project managers. I know for us, as we grew and we tried to, you know, as you grow as an agency, especially in the beginning, you try to have your employees wear different hats. So we sort of had our strategy team who were the account managers, also the project managers. So they would sell a website and they would also be the ones trying to fulfill it. And we realized the best strategists are the worst project managers, and not necessarily the other way around, but the more creative and the more great they are with clients, the more they just want to be in front of a client and talking. And the great project managers can kind of buckle down and get it done. So we had to separate those roles. And we played and tinkered with it for a couple of years, and I think we found the right solution now. But it took some serious strategy on how to approach both strategic management of a client as well as actual project management and getting a website up or getting ads done or getting content created. It does take two different skill sets.
Man, Kev, you got analogies for everything so far. I love it. I don't have an analogy, but I just want to add a couple comments. I think that especially the way that we structure our relationships with our clients, because it is very much managing social or ongoing campaigns, we end up getting in kind of that monthly cadence, and that's kind of the project management side of it, where you're in a flow and things are just humming along. But I think most of us would probably agree that we don't want to just be in the position of executioner. And Kevin was or implying that a little bit with the difference between strategy and project management. But I think what we've been trying to do and seeing some success with was just allowing ourselves to be in that cadence and execution, but creating opportunities to interrupt it. And so whether that's a monthly brainstorm session for like a fresh campaign idea or quarterly type of approach, I think it's good to just kind of think about what can we sprinkle on top of this nice, smoothly working machine that we've got going, that will just kind of add a little bit of excitement for the audiences, or bring a different type of brand message from the client and their brand. But yeah, just trying to have that two-tiered approach of, yeah, it's good to be in a system and a flow, but how can we bring something special on a regular basis so that we're not just all in our comfort zone and our audiences just don't start to tune out.
Oh, sorry,
Caleb,
I'm unmuted. Sorry,
yeah.
Kevin. So I said, this is going to be interesting because I actually can't hear what you're saying, but I'm sure it's gold right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw our next question into the panel like a volleyball and let you experts talk over it. And then I'm going to try to leave the studio and I'm going to try to come back in to see if that fixes things. So what I want to know now, everyone can hear me? Hands in the air? All right, cool. So within, what's an example, and you don't have to use the client's name, but what's, or the person's name, but what's an example in your organization of a very successful client relationship management? Maybe you can dwell on or relate back to a particular staff person and a client. You don't have to name names, but I'm interested in what were the very specific things that made that client relationship management so fruitful and so effective. And I'll toss that into the group, and then I'm going to try to leave and then come back in. We'll see what happens.
I can go. So I do predominantly branding. So I was rebranding a very traditional company. They had a lot of stakeholders. So for me, it was very important to get them all in the same room together, and going through a series of exercises where they all had input, they all had buy-in. So when we got to the execution of the logo and the presentation, everyone saw their input reflected in that. And it was just a really smooth and seamless process. The reason I feel that was very successful is some of the feedback I got back from the client was that they felt like it was very money well spent, where they had found very good value in the entire project. And that to me felt really good and really rewarding. So that was a good success. Another one, I mentioned when I get lots of referrals, that's fantastic. And then I worked with Brown Baking for Calgary's Kids for a long time, probably 8 or 9 years. And I recently was able to hand off a bunch of files, set them up with some more junior people. And that felt really good too, because I'm no longer being, I think I was more of just like, finding a better role for them. Like it just came that to a time and a place where we could find a better solution for them than me. So those all felt really good. Sometimes things don't always end well with clients, or I've seen or have been in other relationships where it hasn't always gone well. So those ones felt really good.
And I can hear everyone now, so that's awesome. Thank you.
I can go next. I think for Brookline, one particular example would be a client who just really needed to see that we could walk the talk, we needed to build the trust, we needed to deliver. So some really quick and efficient and effective wins. And once those were accomplished, it was like, okay, more projects were given with less questions, more, let's see what you can do. We trust you guys as our PR advisors, go for it. But those quick and easy wins needed to happen first to build the trust. And then I think the bigger opportunities came about, and they continue to be. So I think it comes down to trust and showing those really quick results.
Definitely, I'll piggyback off of that. The client that I'd talk about is one that we got just back in October, and it was, for me, it was kind of that dream client, the type of client I've always been just wanting to achieve a relationship with in the first place. And when we first started our agency, I think, and maybe those watching would relate to this, but when you're young in your agency, it's just as much about cash flow as it is about getting results for your clients. And so I think it's easy to sometimes just kind of cash that deposit check and then think about, okay, what other leads can I kind of get into the room, rather than showing value for the client that just gave you a deposit. So I think I learned really quickly how important it is to show value early, and Shauna was talking about that as well, getting those quick wins. But that's what really did it for us with this new client back in October. They're essentially a protective product for mobile tech like phones and laptops and things like that over in San Francisco. And they're much bigger than any client that we've ever worked with before. But we were able to show results early, and they had a social program that wasn't working. They had a low engagement rate, and the social wasn't driving any traffic to their website. They weren't seeing much referral sales from those programs. So we were able to get their engagement up really quickly, and also actually show real revenue from it as well. So where we started with organic social for this client, because we showed value early, then they started to trust us with their paid campaigns. And then we were able to show strong return on investment with their paid campaigns. And then after that, we got the opportunity when their full-time copywriter quit to actually take on their long form content as well. So that was something over the course of the last 6 months that, because of just showing value early and proving to them that we could make a difference, we actually got to kind of see that account grow by like essentially 3 times for us. So that's definitely the biggest client win that we've ever had before, but it's also teaching us a lot of things about how we can approach clients differently in the future. And again, just showing what we can do right out of the gate.
Yeah, to kind of go forward exactly what everyone's saying. I think when we started marketing with any organization, you were sort of value negative, just like an employee. So when an employee starts, you're giving your time and training them and giving them resources and all of this, and you hope that, you know, eventually you go even and then there's positive. And so early on, I think it's really important that you choose your clients right as well. And I think, Mike, to your point, early on, you just kind of take clients as ones that are willing to work with you. But you learn over time that the best relationships are the ones where it's a partnership both ways. And so, you know, from our standpoint, I think listening right off the bat, really understanding what they're after and not rushing the sales process, letting them sort of be comfortable and stepping into that right off the bat, and then being totally honest with what you can and cannot do. And saying like, these are our expectations. This is what we're really good at, and here's what we're not great at. And Sean, it's funny, we get asked about PR all the time, and it's the one thing I go, no, we're not great at that. And you need to hire someone else, because what's going to happen is we're going to say, there you go, exactly. And so, you know, you say if we take that on and you kind of cash the check and hope to fulfill later, that's where you lose that credibility. And so that's really important, is the what we will and what we won't do list. And then also asking them, how do you like to work? So are you the person that expects an email back right away? Do you need a phone call? Do you prefer email? We sort of get those sort of things out of the way as well, because aside from like personality profiling and how, you know, you have, if you use disc profiling and all, you know, different customers have different profiles, and so you try to speak their language. It's also, how do you like to work? Do you like to work at night? Do you prefer a phone call if there's more than 2 emails? We sort of get that out of the way early, and those small things just make their life easier. And then lastly is get the billing right. Nothing bugs a client more than billing issues. And so making sure that you build them properly on time, and that you're, you make sure that side of your business is set up. And I think if you can do that in the beginning, you're going to set yourself up on a really good client relationship. And then over time, as you help them grow, a good client relationship is somebody who also helps you grow. So Mike said that they're going to give you more work. They're going to refer you. They're going to be an advocate and give you testimonials. And I think it's important that you also ask for that, because that's a partnership. It's interesting in marketing, we have the ability to exponentially help our clients grow. If we do a great job, they could 2 times, 3 times, 10 times their revenue. But yet a lot of times they're on an hourly basis or on a flat retainer basis. And so for us, they're only as great as the next contract, where with us, we can exponentially impact their business. And so I think it's okay to ask them in other ways to help you and help your business grow, because we make such an impact on their business.
That
That's a great point. Sorry, I muted you there, Shauna, because it was just feeding back. But like the orchestrator of the muting and unmuting here. So a lot of great points there. I think that in our agency, an example I can dwell on is kind of tightly aligned with what Kevin said. And a lot of times when you're getting starting out, I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, you got the client and you didn't want to show them like any sense of vulnerability because you thought that might come across as weakness, or you don't know what you're doing or whatever, right? But how much power it creates when you just sit and have a conversation with them at the beginnings and talk about things like, how do you like communication to go? How do you like your reports built? Whereas if I asked that 5 years ago, I'd be like, they're going to think I don't know what I'm talking about, because what do you mean, how do you want your reports built? Don't you guys have a best practice way of developing reports? For sure we do. But when you start to understand that your client has preferences and feelings and emotions around how they are working with a supplier, and you can start tailoring your expertise and your solution to what works best for them and what makes their life easier. Because listen, at the end of the day, our job is just to make their life easier, is to make them look like the hero inside their organization, right? So that really resonated with me, Kevin, but I know a lot of you kind of touched on that. So I'll jump into the next question here, and of course it's the yang to the yin as it relates to that question, and it is, let's dig into times where it blew up and what was happening, what happened to create unsuccessful client relationship. So are there some things to look out for as maybe a new account rep, a new account executive that you want to steer away from based on your guys' experiences?
Maybe I'll start just because I finished the last one. I think that expectation alignment is 98% of this. And so if we overpromise, underdeliver, definitely there. But I think just not even setting those expectations and not understanding what the expectations are of the client and what they're expecting from you can be the difference. We've gotten down the point where we believe we are doing so much work for what the retainer is, and they go, yeah, but I can get someone to do that off Kijiji for like this much. And you realize like, okay, they're not valuing this part of the business to be that. And, if you look at graphic design, I know you talk about branding and what goes into a logo and what goes into like even a brochure. And they think it's, someone that they could hire for $15 an hour on Kijiji, and it's going to be $60 to get a brochure done. And you realize all the steps and things that go into that, or a website. And so just making sure that expectations are being set. And the question I always ask is, what does success look like to you? How will you know that when we give you the next bill, we're the happiest bill, like you are making sure this one gets paid? And I want to know upfront, how do we make sure that we build a program that you're happy to pay our bill, as opposed to, wondering or wondering where the value is? So I think right off the gates, that would be my advice.
I'll go next. I think exactly what you just said, but I also think if it's a long-term client, you have to continually check in on those expectations, because as their business moves and divots and pivots, etc., you need to make sure that their expectations are continually being communicated to you, because sometimes they change. And so what they wanted at that initial strategy session, where you ask them your perfect checklist of what you want and how you want it, things can often happen on their end, and sometimes that miscommunication is not there, that communication is not there, which causes miscommunication. So I think to stop that from happening, it's over communication. And where that unsuccessful client relationship can happen is when you use those set expectations at the beginning, but you don't check in along the way.
Yeah, I can take it from there. I think I agree with both of you. I think there's asking from the beginning what success looks like, and then regular check-ins, depending on how frequent you're working with them. I have a hospitality client that I do. It's going to sound silly. I feel silly saying it, but we do a SWOT analysis every year, and it changes every year. And then from there, we adjust the marketing planning based on that. And it's really, those simple exercises can be really, really helpful that way. An example of when it's been unsuccessful is when I had not delivered value to the client. So it's the opposite of when I've been successful. When there's good value alignment and I've delivered a lot of value, I feel really good about it. When, to what William said about when working on branding, when you don't know what goes into the process of a brand, it can feel like you can just get someone off 99 Designs to do that. And I do recommend that depending on the budget and depending where they're at in their business. So I've had in my initial stages where I've tried to brand some smaller companies or solopreneurs and haven't kind of closed the project nice and neatly. Like we've just ended it here because of whatever's come up and paused it. And now it's like there's a website out there that's launched and it's kind of not good and I'm not proud of it. That to me is unsuccessful. So I very much watch for those types of things now and refer them to different people.
I don't have a ton to add. I think to get a little bit granular, just as an example, fleshing out further this idea of communication being so important. I think the times that things have blown up the most, honestly, is just when we overpromised in the sense of deadlines. You know, like when can we deliver something by, and then we can't, and then we don't actually deliver it by that time. And when I was younger, running this business, I overpromised all the time when it came to deadlines because I felt like this pressure to tell the client what they wanted to hear about when it could be done or when we could go live or whatever. But that always ends up coming to bite you in the butt later. So there's been so much less conflict ever since we just got better at identifying reasonable deadlines for projects and deliverables. And also at the end of the day after that, just what the outcomes are that we can actually promise as well. Whether that's revenue or, you know, just like account growth or an awareness play, but just being clear what the outcomes are so that you're on the same page.
That's awesome, guys. So anytime that there is that misalignment between, between the client and the account team, it often puts us in a position where we need to say sorry, right? And we need to start going down the road of reparation and fixing what was potentially broken, because in most cases, these are long-term relationships. So my next question is, something went wrong, you had to say sorry. What are some tips for rebuilding that trust, for repairing and strengthening that relationship when things went poorly?
I find empathy. Sorry, Shauna, you can go. Okay.
Okay, go.
Okay, so I think empathy is the thing that I've learned. Naturally, I'm not an empathetic person, but I learned really quickly that when a client is up in arms and then you kind of return a similar sentiment, that things go south really quickly. So I've had to learn empathy. So I think that's always where you start. If something's going wrong, if there's a problem, if there's a fire burning, show that you understand where they're coming from and what they feel, and that you understand that you need to find a path forward, and just be honest about owning mistakes. I think people hate when excuses are made, but if we can just own it and then kind of map that path forward, then that's always better. So what does that look like to actually map the path forward? Once you empathize and kind of clarify that you're on the same page, then you need to also bring clarity to the fact that you know exactly what they're feeling, and that you've identified what the problem is from what they've brought to you. So if you can agree on that, then from there, I think it's really about overcoming at that point. So you've empathized with them, you relate to them, you've clarified what the problem is, then at that point you can really identify what are the next steps. How do we actually get from here to where we want to be? And then again, I think point of clarification after that point is really crucial to say, okay, we agree on these steps. And much like the previous question, we agree on what the deadline is to reach this resolution. And then everyone kind of feels reassured that we're righting the ship and that we're going to move forward without these similar types of wrinkles. So empathy, clarification, and then a solution, and then a clarification again.
So you said two words that I live and die by, and those are own it. I think when you're in a client relationship and it's on you and it's on your team the easiest way for you to at least get those shoulders from your client to at least relax is just to own what your part in that relationship was. The other element of own it is once you've owned your part in it, own moving forward. So own it and say, okay, we've established what happened. We've owned what we need to in terms of what took place. Now let's take the responsibility and move forward and own that part as well. And we find that as soon as you do that, relationships with clients are just so much better because they do see that it's a two-way relationship. And so I say that to the team all the time. If it's on us, we have to own it. If it's not on us, own it anyways, and let's move forward and own what we need to do to get the job done.
That was so much more articulate.
Yeah, I think mine is very much the same. It's acknowledge what happened. Everyone wants to feel like you've heard them, so acknowledge it. Doesn't really matter whose mistake it is, but if it is my mistake or your team's mistake, then for sure accept responsibility for that. Seek to understand what happened. Seek to understand and be fully open about what they're saying, like really listening to them, I guess is how I would describe that. And then I always bring it back to focusing on what's in front of us. What do we need to do to move forward? Yes, this happened, but what do we do today? Like things are going to happen. And I lots of times when I start a relationship, I start it with like, things aren't always going to be perfect. We're going to have issues that come along. Like that's just natural. Like, and I look at them very similar to my personal relationships. Like I guess I do treat my client relationships very personally. So I do that in all areas of my life. Acknowledge, seek to understand the other side, and then focus on what we're going to do next. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been wrong or done anything wrong. So I struggled with this one. No, I think you guys nailed it with owning it up front, being honest. I think for us, I will typically stand in front, and even if it's obviously I'm not on the client side very much anymore, but I will I'll stand in front and be that kind of hitman for them and own it and rate to business owner, and then I'll usually ask, how do we make this right? And I think that question really puts them at ease, where you're not coming in swinging. You go, I can offer you something. It might be way more than what you think. It may be way less. How do we make this right for you? And here's what I'm doing to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's what they need to hear. They need to know that that this was a one-off, that you're putting things in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then let them come back with, it might just be, you know what, we're okay, let's move on. Or they might want money back, or they might, who knows? But I think that question just lets them go to ease, and then you can move forward.
That's awesome. This is the first panel we've ever run, and using this new tool, and I appreciate you guys' patience. And I'm getting texts from the background saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. And so this one resonated with me, so I will do this one. And that is specifically, I want to hear from Shauna. Okay, Shauna, what I want to hear from you is going back to what we were talking about before, where we're looking at onboarding clients and really setting that relationship off on a good foot from the beginning. Can you tell us really quickly, in your experience, what are some red flags that this is not going to be a fit for us, and how do you say no to a client, to a lead, to a potential client?
So with Brookline, we have an onboarding process. I'm sure all of you do. And we have a client checklist. And so you tend to get you just get a feeling of this is going to go really well right from the beginning as you go through key questions. There's certain points in time where you get a bit of a red flag where it comes down to, deliverable expectations and deadlines, expectations in terms of what they want. Some of the panelists, have actual tangible products that they produce, whether it's a logo or a brand. With PR, it can be very intangible, where it could be awareness and how much that brand building builds their brand on an ongoing basis. So we have to also manage our clients' expectations. So if someone says, listen, I'm a small mom and pop yoga studio, but I want to be in the Globe and Mail tomorrow, those are huge red flags for us, because we have to manage, listen, you're not going to get there tomorrow. We need to build you and kind of ripple splash strategy. But if that's what you want to do tomorrow, we need to have a very frank conversation today. So we have to have the ability to have those conversations with our clients. And sometimes it's not what they want to hear, it's what they need to hear. And if that's okay with the client and we can kind of step them back to where they need to be, fantastic, let's move forward. But if they're kind of stuck in the mud and they want to move forward that way, we have to have a conversation and say, well, we might not be a fit for you.
That's awesome.
I think you could get a yoga studio to Globe Mail. They just might not like what it's going to take to get there. It might not be in a positive way.
Potentially, I don't think tomorrow though.
Right. This question that's hilarious. I was going to say also, like, you don't mess with Shauna based on what I've heard.
What does that mean?
No, it's like I know what's going on, and that's right, because you take a client on that doesn't align with what you're trying to do and what your values are, the ripple effects that has on your team, and the team seeing that you are okay with bringing that into your space is there's issues there. So you got to be serious. It goes back to what Kevin was saying before: protect your team. Your tribe.
It's not even values though. I think it's also just realistic expectations, because they're coming to us as experts. And so as experts, we know what can actually happen from a PR perspective, and we have to be okay and have those honest conversations.
This question is for, thanks, Shauna. This question's for Kevin and Mike, because I know that I've met some of your team, and there's members of your team there's all ages, but speaking specifically about younger people that are put into a client relationship position, I'm interested in how you train. Some people take the approach of go into the deep end and figure it out. Some people do mirroring, shadowing, but the fact remains is that when you get in front of a client, you never know what's going to happen. So talk to me a little bit about training young people in a client relationship management role.
So I'm gonna put in. So you're saying young, but I'm also going to expand that to people that are uncomfortable in those situations, because you can have someone of any age be uncomfortable, and you can have
and when I say
17
young,
just kill it.
When I say young, I maybe either inexperienced.
Okay.
So they could be a 50-year-old first-time client account. Rep or whatever. So
I actually have developed a culture book. It's about 40 or 50 pages, just like one slide, one quote kind of thing. And one of the slides we have is a cat with a massive lion projected as a shadow. And the way that we talk about that is some days you're going to feel like the cat, you're going to feel super small, and but you always have to project the lion. Clients are paying for the lion. They're paying for somebody that is confident and knows they're in control. And so you kind of have to channel your inner lion. So we help them with that. We do role playing and what have you. But what I've learned is we start throwing this into the interview process. And so when we're looking at people that are going to handle accounts, we have them do one of two things. One is they will do a presentation for our executive team, and we pepper them pretty hard to see if they can handle that. Or number two is we have them sing for us, and they can pick any song they want, and they stand up, and we have a company-wide karaoke contest we do every year. So it's a big thing in our culture. So we ask them what song do they want to sing, and if you can stand up in the middle of an interview and actually sing, that goes a long way for us. So it's one of those two things, and we know that they typically are going to be the lion in those situations, and so we can identify early.
Man, karaoke is the worst. I would not be singing in that interview, but yeah, we don't have a culture book. I love the idea of a culture book. Maybe I'll have to implement that, but so far what's worked for us is I guess just a few tiers along the way. And the way I look at it is when I'm bringing someone in and kind of teaching them before they're just let to leave the nest, I try to look at it like this. So first I do it, you watch. So they're in the meeting with me, I'm doing it. Secondly, we do it together. So like after they've seen me do it for a while and they feel like they're comfortable, then we move on to we do it together. So it's more of a collaborative effort, whether it's in a meeting or getting a project done. And then after we go through that for a while of doing it together, then it's you do it and I watch. And then I can give them constructive feedback. They have the room to fail or like mess up a little bit. And obviously I'll protect and take care of them. but then after a while of them doing it while I watch, then it's kind of reached the point where they're comfortable. They're confident. They can tell me that they feel like they can take it on their own, and then they're trusted to do so. And obviously, still, because we're a small team, I end up in a lot of those conversations anyway. But they're trusted at that point that they own it and that they can handle it. And usually by that point as well, the client trusts them too. So even if there is still some learning to be done, it's in a safe environment, and nothing's really too far gone that you can't recover from. So that's what's worked for us so far. I've only had to do that with a few people because our team is small and they stick around so far for quite a while. But I'm definitely also not an HR professional, so I could stand to learn some things likely about onboarding and setting people up for success.
Me too. Kev, I was going to ask, well, somebody asked, have you ever been blown away by anybody's, have you had to encourage them to leave pod and maybe go on the road and realize their singing career?
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably the person watching it is that person. So yeah, we do have a few people that are super talented. One specifically, not only is she an amazing singer, but she's also a entertainment wrestler on the weekends. So I know. We do retreats every year, and we have kind of departments come up and do a presentation on what they've done for the year. And she blew us away by rewriting the words and lyrics to like 5 of the all-time greatest hit songs, and just sat out and belted them with her own lyrics in them. So yeah, we do have a few people that surprise me.
That's awesome. Okay, I have another question here, and we're gonna have time for this one and then one more. This video is going to be saved on YouTube, and we can share it out, and because there's a lot of very valuable information here. So thank you guys. This question is, if you have a team out there, whether it's one person or 100 people, what are your words of advice, and how can you show up right now as a leader during what we're going through? In my experience, we've had a very wide array of emotions and thoughts and feelings in regards to just the uncertainty over the last 72 hours. As a leader, what's our responsibility for your team right now, and how has that shown up maybe for yourselves over the last week? Oh, I'm supposed to direct the question. Let's go with Shannon.
I don't have a big team, so for me, but I still think, regardless of not having a big or sizable team, right now, the biggest thing you can do is offer security. So the first thing I did with my coworker was basically to say, if we had nothing coming in for the next 6 months to 8 months, we'd be totally okay. We're good. Don't worry about it. Like, we're fine, and it'll all be fine, and you're gonna get paid, and we'll all be good. And then the next thing I did, this is a staff question, but is like, offer the same kind of thing to my clients. It's just like the sense of security that I could give in those moments that are full of unknowns. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask everyone to chime in on this one. Mike.
Yeah, I think for me, for Mitzi and I, my wife is also my business partner, and so we have to get on the same page really quickly with stuff like that. So it all started there for me, but then quickly from there, bringing it to our team. It is important to kind of alleviate tensions or fears with clients, but I think from our perspective, it was the most important to start from the inside out. So just assuring our team that everything is okay, and also letting them know that we're going to be transparent with them in the process. They're not going to be the last ones to know if things are going down, but that we have a plan in place, and that they're the top priority. Because as much as you need to keep clients, at the end of the day, we treat them and we view them like family, and we're responsible for their livelihood. So we really wanted to make sure that there was that confidence in place. So I don't know if it was Caleb or Kevin at the beginning of this discussion mentioned even just like, if you wrap your arms around them, and then they'll take care of the clients. But just setting up that confidence so that fear doesn't have to be in the back of their minds. And then from there, bringing it to the client and just saying, hey, how can we not just weather this storm together, but actually be creative about how we can make the most out of it. And when I say make the most out of it, I don't mean take advantage or exploit it, because there's a lot of fear and anxiety. And there's some people that are trying to exploit that, whether it's like buying up toilet paper and selling it for 50 times the price, or hand sanitizer or whatever. We're not trying to exploit anything here, but what if your product or service could be a difference maker for a certain type of people or a certain type of need? Then we need to really hit that heavy. Or if not, if your product or service is kind of irrelevant in this moment, then what kind of brand messaging, what kind of positive messaging can you add to the narrative to turn this thing around from being so negative and depressing to being something where we actually have a glimmer of hope, or if still not a lot of hope, a little bit of normalcy in the middle of all the chaos, So I think it's really important for us to show up from an idea perspective with clients and say, this is what we think could work well, beyond just kind of curling up into a ball and waiting it out.
I'll go next. You said something there, Mike, having the ability to show up. I think from a leadership perspective, at least with Brookline, it's twofold. I think in this time, in this current state, the teams need direction. They need someone to say, okay, this is where we're at and this is where we need to go. But I think, quite honestly, you need humor as well. There's got to be a bit of levity in all of this. And I think you've got to have some times where you can just laugh with the team, make it as lighthearted as you can in appropriate moments. But I think people need to also know that you're still in it. You're in it together with that direction, and throw in some humor when you can.
Yeah, those are all really good points. I think for us, it starts with being prepared. And so, Mike said, not hiding in the sand. I think as a leader, it's on us to understand what's happening and the impact, and to kind of be a visionary of how this will impact your business, and be prepared not for tomorrow, but for 30, 60, 90 days out, and put things in place so that there is a business in place. I use the word honest compassion, being honest, but very compassionate while being honest. I think that I've heard of companies doing layoffs and their employees find out through Instagram. That's hard to take from a brand perspective. As an employee perspective, people can work there years, and that's how you find out. So being really open. I think calm and positive are other two words that you want to use if you need to have a freak out or what have you. Reach out to fellow other entrepreneurs or friends, or somebody that you can vent to, and show up and be calm and positive. And I think the other thing is, like you said, humor, but also team. Yesterday, it wasn't me that organized it, but St. Patrick's Day, we did beer o'clock at 3:30. And even though we're all in different homes, everyone grabbed a beer and we spent half an hour. We went around and everybody showed what beer they were drinking, what a win they had today, and something they were grateful for. And we sort of implemented a policy where I want every manager to, there it is, or every manager, I want everybody looking in the eyes of every employee that works for them, minimum every 2 days. And so I'm bouncing between team meetings, and I'm trying to be present and be there for them, and they see me. And it's important that their manager, they're not going more than 2 days without looking in the eyes of their employees. So I think having kind of set policies in terms of making sure that people that are in self-isolation, especially those that live by themselves, have a support system. And whether it's an open Hangout, a Google Hangout for lunch, where everyone can just show up to a certain chat room and have lunch together, or you have happy hour or what have you. It's just ways to create team and community in a hard time. So just things like that, and really just empathize with your staff and what they're going through, and be there for them.
Thank you, guys. And this will be the last question, because we only have a few minutes left. And but before I ask it, I just want to thank you guys, the four of you again. And for everyone that tuned in, I respect Shannon, Mike, Kevin, and Shauna. I've got to know a lot about, or some things about you over the course of this broadcast. But I love what you guys are doing in your companies and in the city. And so I really appreciate you being the guinea pigs. We'll probably look at Zoom next time, but that's okay. That's part of the process. So what I would like to ask for my last question is taking somebody's question and merging it into my own. And it's very simple. Number one, we all have a lot of time to read right now. So I want one book recommendation and why.
And the second part of that question is one thing that you've learned from the panel today that maybe you knew before but didn't think as much about. So start with you, Shannon.
To read. I kind of, I'm in the middle of running myself through Simon Sinek's Start with the Why and then Find Your Why again for the second time, because I feel like those are very important things for brand and just important things for me to, in my line of work, stay current with and be reminded of. What was the other question? What have I learned today? I can't hear you, Caleb, you're muted, so.
Anything you've picked up from the panel?
Anything I've picked up from the panel, yes. I think finding what I found most interesting about the conversation we had today is the commonalities that we all shared. I know a lot of agencies in the city, and they're all very, very diverse in how they're run, but I haven't quite gotten a group like this and had a chat like this where there was quite an alignment on even that one question on how to strengthen a relationship. Like we were all very on board with like acknowledging and taking steps to move forward with that. So that felt really good. That felt like I was in a community together. So I really enjoyed that part of the conversation today. So thank you.
My favorite book in the last little while has been Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's kind of a memoir more than like a nonfiction business book, but Phil Knight was the founder of Nike, and I think it's one just really interesting to read, and it's cool to like get the details of the journey of like, because I think sometimes we all like glorify brands like Nike and just have this sense that they've always been this way. But there was a day where Nike was just him, in his apartment, and it was a startup, and he didn't know if it was going to work. And to see all the kind of the roadblocks and speed bumps that he hit along the way, and the amount of times he almost went bankrupt and had lawsuits and all this stuff, like that just kind of gives me some sense of comfort when I hit roadblocks or things don't grow as quickly as I hoped, or a campaign doesn't go my way. So I would encourage anyone who's running a business or even in marketing or any sort of professional capacity, honestly, I think you could gain a lot of value from it. And I actually liked it. I read it, the hard copy, and then I also listened to it as an audiobook. And I would actually encourage you to listen to it as an audiobook because it's just a really great story. So as far as what I took away from today, man, it's hard to pick. I think the most memorable things were Kevin's analogies. Yeah, I think there's a lot of insight here, specifically from all three, Shannon, Kevin, and Shauna, of not just how to identify what is a good fit with the client, but also how to grow the accounts. And yes, there's some alignment, but there's also a wealth of experience that I haven't had on my own yet that you guys offer. So I think I really stand to benefit from that, and we'll pass that on to my team.
I think being the only mom on the panel, as you perhaps will one day appreciate, your book repertoire typically is with kid books and bedtime reading. So one of the ones that I love, and I do with my 6-year-old every night, is called The Bucket Filler. And it's all about being a bucket filler or being a bucket dipper. And it's either building people up or putting people down, and talking through that with your 6-year-old about always being a bucket filler and trying to fill someone else's bucket on a day-to-day basis. And I think given the world in which we are in right now, I encourage everyone to try to do that bucket fill every day, once a day, if not more than once a day. And so that's one that kind of resonates with me. So I'll leave it at that from a book perspective. What I took away from today's panel is I think I obviously knew Caleb before, but I've met 3 very amazing people who I promise I'll reach out to. And I think there's some great networking contacts, and who knows if we can do business today or tomorrow together. So I really appreciate this, Caleb. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shauna.
Thanks. And so Shoe Dog, awesome book. From a personal perspective, it's one of the best books I've read in years. It's a great story. On a business side, one that's just changed our business is Traction. So talks about core concepts in your business, and if you implement it, it's amazing. And I wouldn't be in marketing if I couldn't self-promote a little bit. So I put out my own book last year called Click, Transform Your Business Through Digital Marketing, available on Amazon. So that would be the best book that anyone could read ever. But I'll let you guys decide that one. From my perspective, what I learned today is I have a ton of confidence in Calgary business leaders. There's no reason to show up today. There's 100 reasons why we could be doing other things, and to have 3 other panelists show up and positivity and the way you guys approach this week and the way you approach clients and everything is just nailed it on the head. So between those 3 and Caleb, obviously you and I share a lot of similarities in terms of our outlook on how we approach clients and employees. I'm just proud to be part of the business community here, and I think even though we're in some uncharted waters, I'm confident that with the business community we have, we're gonna be just fine.
Thanks, Kev. Thank you guys again so much. I really appreciate you taking time out of your evenings, and I encourage you to go back and be grateful. One thing I was going to mention too, Shauna, you stole the words right out of my mouth. The books that I have just been obsessed with lately are Gerald the Giraffe, because he doesn't have a voice, and then he learns how to dance because he reflects on things he's grateful for. I Love My Mommy. All of these different books where I guess a lot of times I'm getting home when Naya's sleeping, right? So let's remember like what's really important here, right? And then it is that I get to hang out with my daughter all day in between meetings and stuff like that. So I really appreciate you guys' positivity and your energy and your wealth of knowledge, and thank you again very much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.